It's 6 o'clock. I will call the meeting to order. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 38, Section 18, and Governor Healy's March 29th, 2023 revised order extending remote participation by all members any meeting of a public body. This meeting of the Select Board will be conducted both in person and via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information in the general guideline for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and a requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public and committee members may attend the meeting in person, or for those who wish to do so, they may attend remotely. For those who are not in person, every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings real time via technological means. Pursuant to MGL 7C 30A, Section 20F, to notify the chair of the public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recordings. This meeting is being recorded by the Berkshire Edge, the Berkshire Eagle, the town of Great Barrington, and other members of the public. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listing of agenda items are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. So let's start with a roll call vote. Ben Elliott.
Here.
Garfield Reed.
Here.
Eric Gabriel.
Here.
Lee Davis.
Here.
And Steve Bannon. So the entire select board is present. Select board's announcements, statements, Ben.
Nothing for me tonight.
Garfield.
No.
Eric. Lee.
I apologize for not being able to attend in person. I'm just getting over a procedure and I'm calling from a hospital bed, so I will be here in spirit.
Thank you, Lee. And I have nothing. Town manager's report.
Thanks, Steve. I just have one update for tonight. That's Houston Waterworks. So we met with our attorney in executive session again last week, and I just wanted to mention that this is an incredibly complex matter without a simple or inexpensive solution. So we appreciate everyone's patience. I also wanted to remind everyone tonight that the DPU's rate case public hearing will be held next Tuesday, September 26th at 7 o'clock. It's at the Monument Mountain Regional High School Auditorium, and we will issue a press release and circulate a code red call between now and then.
Thank you. I'm going to move one thing up because someone's here and we have a couple items that may take some time. So 7E, which is to vote to approve the 7 minutes of silence proclamation. Eric, could you just read the proclamation?
Yes. Proclamation, 7 minutes of World Peace Day. Whereas 7 minutes of world peace is a global simultaneous observance of silence for 7 minutes on September 21st, 1400 to 1407 hours, Greenwich Mean Time, corresponding to 9 a.m. to 9:07 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time in the United States, marking the International Day of Peace. When the peace bell is rung at the United Nations, thereby uniting individuals, communities, organizations, and nations around the world in silence, prayer, meditation dedicated to the spirit of world peace. And whereas 7 minutes of world peace was founded in 1984 by Seer Chimoy, 1931 through 2007, and hosted by Seer Chimoy Center, Peace Meditations at the United Nations in cooperation with the United Nations Association around the world, along with a broad range of religious, spiritual, and educational and peace organizations who believe that a foundation in inner peace must be established amongst all people before outer peace can become a reality. And whereas 7 minutes of world peace has no political, religious affirmations or point of view, other than the universal human desire for harmony amongst nations and people. And whereas the town of Great Barrington has an ever-increasing commitment to ideas of peace and compassion and social justice. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the select board of the town of Great Barrington do hereby request that all town offices join others around the world in observing simultaneous silence during 7 minutes of world peace from 9 a.m. to 9:07 Eastern Standard Time on September 21st, 2023, and encourage all town employees and citizens of Great Barrington to participate individually or collectively in the spirit of peace. In witness thereof, we have here unto set on this 18th day of September, 2023.
We have a motion to approve the proclamation.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second, roll call vote. Ben,
Aye.
Garfield,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
and I. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Public hearings. This is a special permit application from WDM Properties. David Carver, 37 Main Street, Suite 202, North Adams, Mass. For an 8-unit, multi-unit residential redevelopment in the former Housatonic School at 207 Pleasant Street, Housatonic. Application is filed in accordance with sections 3.1.4A3, 8.3, 9.9, 10.4, and 10.5 of the zoning bylaw. So first, I'm going to start with this matter on the agenda is an application by WDM Properties for a special permit for redevelopment of the Housatonic School property at 207 Pleasant Street. This application presents a conflict of interest situation because only one member of the select board, is a direct abutter to the school property, that being Ben, and one member, Eric, is related to a direct abutter. The property is a rental house that belonged to Eric's late father, and his brother still resides there. Therefore, the town manager requested advice from town council. We have received an opinion regarding the provision in the state's conflict of interest law that prohibits a municipal employee from participating in a particular matter in which the employee or the employee's immediate family has financial interest. In explaining the position of the State Ethics Commission that a municipal employee is presumed to have a financial interest in a property if the employee's property directly abuts that property. If only 3 members of the board could participate in the public hearing and application review process, the board would not have the quorum required to act on the application because the State Zoning Act specifies that the grant of a special permit by a 5-member special permit granting authority, such as this select board, requires the affirmative vote of at least 4 members. GL Chapter 48, Section 9. Under the conflict of interest law, when conflicts present a board from having a quorum required to act on a particular matter, and the board is required to act, the so-called rule of necessity may be used to allow the board member or members who have a conflict to participate in the matter. This is one of those situations. Therefore, I am recommending that we invoke the rule of necessity in order to allow the select board to carry out its responsibility to consider and act upon the special permit application. When the rule is used, all board members are allowed to act on the matter in question, although a member may still refrain from participating if he or she chooses to do so. The rule also requires that board member or members who have a conflict of interest must first disclose the conflict. In this instance, the conflict arises on account of ownership of abutting property. For the record, the members in question are Ben Elliott, a direct abutter at 208 Pleasant Street, and Eric Gabriel, whose family is a direct abutter at 226 Highland Street. And before I ask for a motion, I will ask members Elliott and Gabriel to confirm the property addresses and abutter status. Ben?
Yes.
That's correct.
I will now ask for a motion from either Garfield or Lee that we invoke the rule of necessity in order to have a quorum to act on the special permit application for the Housatonic School property. So moved.
So moved.
Lee, do I have a second?
A second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, it's a roll call vote. So Ben,
Aye.
Garfield,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
and I. It's a unanimous vote. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Roll call vote, Ben.
Aye.
Garfield.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
And I, it's unanimous. An explanation of the project, please. Bob, introduce yourself. Set microphone.
Good evening. John. On.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dave Carver, managing partner of WDM Properties. We are proposing to convert the Housatonic School into 8 market rate apartments. Been working on this for quite some time, and with me tonight is our construction manager, Dan Soldado, Steve Mack from Foresight Land Services, and the project architect, Robert Harrison. And I think phoning in remotely is our attorney, Dennis Egan, and we are all here to answer any specific questions you have about the proposal.
Dennis right now. To be canvas.
Good evening. I'm just confirming that I am indeed joining via Zoom. I apologize for not attending this evening, but I'm under the weather, so I don't want to get anyone sick in the room.
And we appreciate that. Do you want Chris to share the screen?
Yes, I think probably the most appropriate thing to do is probably start with a site plan, and Steve Mack can answer any questions that you may have about the site.
Yep.
Want to go to page C2, Chris? That in there, yeah, that's good. Okay, good evening, Steve Mack from Foresight Land Services. Again, here for the Housatonic School project. And just go through this existing site really quickly. This property consists of approximately 0.6 acres. And it meets all of the existing dimensional requirements with respect to setbacks, density, height, etc. It's bounded on the west by the Hoosie Dome on the left-hand side of this screen. To the right is the existing park. To the north is residential, and to the south across Pleasant Street is residential property. The existing site currently has a curb cut to the east, which is to the right of the property, which we are showing on the right-hand side there, goes all the way around the building. It shares a curb cut to the left or the west with the Hoosie Dome. And it has some existing parking, but not too much. It has about 4 or 5 spaces right now that are against the west side of the building. The property is served by municipal water and town sewer. And it's also has existing utility connections off of Pleasant Street. So as Dave said, we're proposing to convert the existing structure into 8 2-bedroom apartment units. And as part of the project, we want to eliminate the easterly curb cut so that we can expand the green space on the east-hand side of the building. And also provide some picnic tables and a sort of sitting area outside for the residents. And we're proposing to repave and restripe the west side of the property. And that will also be partially on the Hoosie Dome Great Barrington property. We're proposing to replace the dumpster, which is in the north side, north corner of the parking lot. And have 15 proposed parking spaces, which includes 1 handicap space. And let's see. So the property requires 8 parking spaces. We're providing 15 just as a method of getting a little more parking for 8 apartments. Water and sewer, we went back to when the facility was used as a school to compare municipal impacts, just to sort of see how it compared to the school. And we're proposing a decrease of about 40 gallons per day for water and sewer usage. We were assuming, well, Title V is 10 gallons per day per student, 12 classrooms, about 15 children per classroom was our sort of guesstimate of maximum usage in the past. And then Title V, which you use for water and sewer, equals by bedroom for residential use, so 16 bedrooms equals 1,760 gallons per day. Stormwater management, we're reducing the runoff on the property by removing a significant amount of asphalt. Removing asphalt on the front, adding landscaping on the east, adding landscaping, and then doing foundation plantings around 3 sides of the building. So a net reduction in stormwater runoff, and improvement in water quality, the runoff. For traffic, we're actually showing a significant reduction in traffic count from the school use. If you can picture pick up and drop off for an elementary school is quite intense in the peak hour. So it's a reduction in about 48 trips per hour in the peak hour, and about 130, a reduction in about 130 trips per day compared to a school for 8 apartment units, which is a reduction in municipal impact. There's no areas subject to the Wetlands Protection Act. We've talked to the Conservation Commission, we've been to the Planning Board, we've been to the Board of Health. The Planning Board actually had one minor revision, which I have a plan that I can give to the board. They asked if we could relocate the bike racks, which we put here. They didn't like the proximity to the handicap space and, sort of requiring the handicap parking to go around the bike racks. So we moved it over here. So that's a minor change that I have on here that I can give to you. We talked to the police chief, and police chief was satisfied with the project and had no concerns. We did talk to the fire chief, and just today got some comments back. He asked if it might be possible, if the select board thought it was a good idea to install a sidewalk along the east side of the driveway, just in case they ever needed to have access along the east side for a ladder or whatnot, which the applicant's amenable to doing. If the select board thinks that's a good idea, we're amenable to putting that sidewalk in. You could submit that as a contingency or supplement. So from an engineering point of view, I think the project is a net reduction in almost every municipal impact on the site. And I'm happy to answer site questions now, or if you'd like the architect to.
Well, let's go through the whole thing again.
I'll turn it over to Robert Harrison.
Hello, my name is Robert Harrison. I'm an architect with Bradley Architects. And I believe this has drawings we can go through. So the project is for 8 2-bedroom units. There will be 4 units on the first floor. There will be 4 units on the second floor. So there we go. There's a first floor plan, and you can see in the upper corners, left and right, unit 1 and 2, and then in the lower corners, left and right, unit 3, unit 4. And the units are pretty much mirrored. They're all identical, and the second floor, though I've drawn it, is virtually identical to the first floor. So the hallway, the existing hallway that served all the classrooms remains almost entirely unchanged, with the exception of 2 mechanical closets that we're installing on one side. But otherwise, it's completely unchanged. We are preserving the existing doorways, fixing them in place, and creating new doors that will be matching the existing doors. The stairways will remain unchanged. The access to the stairways will remain unchanged. They're really very generous apartments. You come in to an entry, opposite the entry, directly opposite the entry will be the kitchen. And then, going to the left would be a large living and dining room. And then off the living and dining room is a small hallway that serves a secondary bedroom and a full bath. And then if you go to the right past the kitchen, you end up in the primary bedroom, and it has a captive bath. And that's pretty much each unit is the same. They all have their own washer dryer. They all have their own air handling units. And, it's very generous and a very nice system. In the basement, if you want to go back to drawings, the basement is simply, being dedicated to storage. So we have the existing, boys and girls toilet rooms with some fairly interesting plumbing fixtures. And for now, mostly, believe it or not, at the behest of the Massachusetts Historic Commission, they would like to see the bathrooms preserved. I'm not sure, who all is ever gonna visit them, but there they are. Between the two bathrooms is the existing mechanical, which will be used, also, again, refilled mechanical. And then all of the space, in the other half on the lower portion, is 8 storage units, one for each unit. And that's pretty much the entire project. We are, if you want to go to the exterior elevations, we are, proposing on the west side of the building, so you can see to the left, dotted in, that's gonna be demolished. That is an existing stair that takes you up to a doorway. We're gonna keep the doorway, we're gonna fix it in place on the exterior. We're gonna remove the door as well as the 2 entry doors. You can see they're also dashed in. And there you can see the 2 doors that are gonna be removed, and they will be replaced with, we actually found the original drawings, and those doors that we're showing fixed in place are the actual original design for the entry and side doors, and we're gonna replicate those and put those in place. But otherwise, the exterior is pretty much gonna remain as it is. The code is gonna require us to upgrade the windows a little bit. There'll probably be some storm windows to provide some energy efficiency. So all of the upper sash, those 6/2, the little 6 lights, those are all translucent, not transparent glass. And some of those must have been broken over time. They've been replaced with transparent glass. We're gonna take those out and actually replace all the newer glass with replicated transparent glass, so that again, there'll be a uniform and more historically correct appearance of the outside of the building. But otherwise, as I said, it's pretty much gonna be the same as it is now.
Set for questions? Let's start. Do you have anything else, Dave, before we go?
I don't think so, unless
Okay.
Dennis Egan has something he wanted to offer or at this point.
Dennis, anything?
Mr. Chair, nothing here.
Thank you. So we'll start with public comments. Speak in favor or opposition, then questions from the select board. Right, but she doesn't get to go into public comments. She's just eager. Go ahead, Fred.
Fred Clark, 388 Park Street, is the time. There's no sidewalk on this side of Pleasant Street. But the plans show a small walkway in front of the building on the south side and access to the parking lot. I'm just wondering if it would be more desirable to install curb cuts that limit access to the parking. Right now, it's kind of a flush along there. It seems like the DPW has always been insisting that we define where a car can come in, and it's a safety issue as well, because otherwise cars can enter the street from any location. That's my entire comment.
Hi, Donna Jacobs, 260 Park Street, and I came tonight partly because I understood that you were going to talk a little bit about your water filtration system. And that's a topic I'm very interested in. And can you speak a little bit about what system you're going to be using for the 8 units?
Just give me 1 second. I didn't print that out in agreement. I'll see if I can find it by email. So at the Board of Health meeting, they asked for, they asked a question about water filtration in the water system. And the applicant has committed to, installing a water filtration system, understanding that it may be semi-temporary depending how long sort of the system works its way through. And let's see here. So the water filter, I'm not sure who's the water filtration expert, so I'll just tell you what we're proposing here maybe. And this was based on the test data that Dave had through, you know, where you got that data from for the filtration?
I think the Culligan, technicians have access to that information.
Right.
When we told them where we were gonna place the unit and the community that it was in, and they use that as a baseline. I think they have access to that.
Yeah, so it says the equipment listed has been selected to remove sediment, iron, manganese, and disinfection byproducts, which I think is one of the topics of conversation we have on expert in this. And it's a CTM CF-30 filterless media.
Could you say that again? I'm sorry.
Here, CTM CF-30 filterless media system. It's got a Catalox light media, carbon filter, filtration system. It's a pretty robust system. I can send it to you if you're interested, but
I wouldn't need one that large, but I think a lot of us in town are looking at what to do, and this is helpful information.
yeah, I know I probably will be.
Yeah, we'd be happy to share this information with you, the system they're proposing, for the school. And I'm sure they have units that are smaller that will do single-family homes. I'm sure they have that equipment over in Houstonic now. But we can give you this information plus the salesman that will, and the technician who are speaking.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Go ahead, Michelle.
Michelle Bear, 70 Division Street. I was just wondering if the developers could discuss the level of apartments that are going in there. Are they affordable, market rate, workforce? And will any public funding be used for the project?
Sure, thank you. Dave, you want to come up and?
I can speak to that. When we made our proposal for the project, we were responding to an RFP issued by the town. Embedded in that RFP was an offer to provide funding in the amount of $650,000 towards the renovations of the project. When we made our final proposal, we included a provision for making sure that these apartments are affordable at the level of 100% of the median area income for Massachusetts. And that will be reflected in the final development documents, and that will also be recorded in the registry of deeds.
Thank you. That answer.
Are you, may I?
Yeah, just for the people at home. That's. We can hear you, but I'm not sure they can.
You spoke as to town contribution. Are you taking any state or federal money for this project?
Our current budget includes 4 levels of financing, our own equity, the town funds. We have an application into a special state program called UPP, Underutilized Property Program. And loan from Berkshire Bank. So those are the 4 sources of direct funding that we're including in this project.
No, historic, right?
Store credits, we are applying for a store credit, but they're not being monetized. They're being kept by the ownership of the project, so they're not part of what we call a capital stack. And that makes the numbers feasible for us to put the equity in the project that we're proposing and that it requires.
I fairly understand that, yeah.
Anyone else? Are you all set? Michelle? Okay. Okay, select board, Lee, go right ahead.
Hi, yes, thank you, Mr. Carver. Thank you very much. So I am disappointed that we've lost 2 units from the original proposal. Originally, it was 10 units, and now it's gone down to 8. And it's well documented that there's a affordable and workforce housing shortage. So I wanted, I was hoping that you could speak to that, the loss of the 2 units, and I'm confused about the historic ask to keep the toilets down the basement if you're not getting historic funding. So if you could kind of clarify that, the reason why that needs to be used for that purpose.
Yeah, the reason we reduced the number of units from 10 to 8 is because we had always had symmetrically placed 4 units per floor. That was 8 units. We were going to have 2 additional units in the lower level. The other half of the lower level would be for storage and for mechanical space. But upon inspecting the lower level of the building, we discovered that the concrete floor is not a real concrete floor. It's maybe only a few inches thick. We also studied a little bit of the moisture issues and fresh air ventilation, also the view shed coming out of some of the windows, possible security concerns. It all added up to the fact that the building probably would be better served with just 8 units and not 10. There's enough space to put 10, but we're not sure that those would make a lot of sense. The other 2, it also adds an additional burden on parking for the neighborhood. And we really wanted 16. The most we could really put on the site is 15. So we just think it would have been very, very difficult upon closer inspection to add 2 units of quality in the lower level.
Lee, go ahead.
So in a follow-up, would you be open to, it sounds like you could add 2 more units. It's just that you chose not to. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. We probably could have put 4 units in the basement, but it's not the type of development that I would want to do.
Mm-hmm. And then the question about, so each unit has 2 bathrooms, so each room has an ensuite, is that correct?
Yes, there is. Well, there's a primary bedroom that has an ensuite, and the secondary bedroom is also serves double duty as a guest bathroom.
Okay, and I was just wondering, was there any consideration of having more units rather than 8 larger units, or how did you settle upon the 2 bedroom, 2 bath unit mix?
They would have been smaller units and not anywhere near as desirable a floor plan. I couldn't come up with the geometry of the building. I mean, I respect these historic buildings and the symmetry of the buildings, and the plan we have come up with respects that symmetry to create, say, 5-6 units per floor. They would have been much smaller, not as desirable, more parking requirements, and simply not respecting the architecture of the buildings, in my opinion.
Okay, and then just one last question following up on the way that you're going to choose the residents there. Who's going to be in charge of taking applications and screening who comes in? Are you going to be working with an outside agency, or are you going to be doing it? And will you be having a local preference? How does this work?
I think we've agreed with the town that we will have local preference, and the managing the marketing will be CT Management, our operating company.
So you will not be opening it up to the lottery, to the state lottery, in terms of opening it up to people that are on the waiting list?
I don't believe so. I believe that we have decided with the town on a local preference language. And we would exhaust the list that we create first, for people that are income eligible within that 100% median. And then after that, we would open it up to the general public outside of Great Barrington. I believe that's the wording that is in the document.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
So what are the costs of these apartments? I was a little disappointed that it's 8 as well, and when you said it was gonna be market rate, it didn't sound like it was gonna be affordable. So what are the pricing?
At this point in time, I believe that the way we have the median income we're using allows the rents to be a little over $2,000 per month, including heat and air conditioning. I believe that we are attempting to open up the project at about $1,850 a month, including internet, including heat and air conditioning.
My 2 cents doesn't sound affordable.
He didn't say it was affordable. He said it was 100% AMI.
You did say it was market rate, was the first words I was now, I spoke.
Eric, go ahead.
So yeah, just a few things, a couple statements, a couple questions. I appreciate the historic aspect of this building and I see the effort you're putting in to not only keep the exterior, but the interior hallways, and I have openly, have gone to school there. And just the architecture of that building is amazing. And the fact that the hallways are gonna be kept open is greatly appreciated to me. And then as far as, since we're touching on AMI and affordable, any added housing is gonna be helpful to our housing stock in Great Barrington. Market rate places, ease the burden on some older houses that still need to be fixed up. Some people coming into town or that are in town might be tired of dealing with the general maintenance of their house and, upkeep, lawns, all that stuff. So that could, why them moving here could open up another place, along the way. So any housing's, helpful, and appreciated. Thank you for considering the filtration systems. Obviously, it is something that we're dealing with. And as far as the curb cuts and the parking, I had a few questions on that. I see we have 15 spaces and those are including the 2 jut outs, say to the right, I'm looking at the park, coming up Pleasant Street. We're talking about towards the park side. We're considering those 2 locations permanent parking spots, or is that like a drop off UPS spot?
Permanent.
Permanent parking spot, okay. And then, just to circle back to what you said about the fire chief, and he was just talking about like a standard sidewalk, just
Yeah,
24 wide or something, or was it
Probably 5 feet wide.
5 feet wide going through there?
And just connecting to the parking and then connecting to the back stairs behind the building, so it's more.
Can Chris put the?
Yeah, Chris, can you put the-
We can.
Side up again.
I think it
Thank
would
you.
have to be that way, ADA, 5 feet.
So I guess,
Go that way up.
Yeah, so it would be sort of coming up through here and then around the back to the back entrance there.
and what would we be replacing then? Would it be less of, it seems like some landscaping or?
Would be, currently it's the asphalt driveway
Right,
curving. And then in this case, it would be just taking 5 feet of the grass and converting it to a sidewalk.
Probably right in line with what we're showing now is some picnic tables. It would be in line. I'm sure the fire chief would want it sufficiently far away from the building so they can lean up the ladder against the building.
yeah,
And when we turn the corner, we can probably stay tight to the building and hit the other stairway on that side.
So the picnic tables may move to the right slightly, so
okay,
and make it be along the side.
It was also a request from the local neighborhood association about doing some ground cover. And so if we put the sidewalk in, we could put ground cover from the building to the edge of the sidewalk that's being proposed now. And it would be a good demarcation to go on beyond that. So maybe we can satisfy both
Yeah.
concerns.
And then obviously, both the egresses are gonna stay working, right? Front and back, there'll be active doorways, is, I think, has to
Is
be.
adding a strip?
Yeah,
Yeah, there'll be new sidewalks going to each, the front and back
Yeah.
doorways.
and then as far as what I would consider the back portion of it, where you have the drainage runoff there. Other than that, the leveling of the landscape back there are gonna stay pretty much the same, the way it is now, existing,
I think the upper,
edge.
that last spot, the grade may come up maybe a foot.
Yeah.
But not much more than that. And that trench that runs is existing, and that will
Yeah.
just be maintained, it's probably clogged, but that can be completely cleared and maintained.
And there's another drainage way to the right of that one, but that can be removed. If you picture it now, there's a curve that runs the entire length of the east side of the building, routes all the drainage over to the catch basin. But now that it's all gonna be lawn, that curve and drainage and everything can go away, it'll percolate into the ground.
It would just go into the ground, won't be a catch basin, you're not
No.
gonna bring a drainage up while you're bringing up the power or water from the backside.
No, it'll just be lawn.
And then just to shift over to the dumpster area, in the paperwork, it says, we'll be sharing that space with the Hoosie Dome. 8 families there, I mean, I envision that's probably a significant size dumpster on top of that. That will all be gated in, and are we envisioning 2 dumpsters there in recycling, or what's?
Well, right now, the Uzi Dome only uses, it's a very small little container.
Yeah.
So this would be, maybe like an 8-yard unit,
Yeah.
One large unit, but it will be completely fenced in with probably 6-inch bollards in the front with concrete.
Yeah.
I don't want that to ever move.
Yeah.
If you hit it, I want the car to be damaged.
Sounds good.
Then go ahead and then.
Yeah.
And then, sure.
I have some questions about your findings on the traffic impacts.
Sure.
I have some questions about the numbers that you did for your model, but specifically the fact that you modeled it off the pre-existing use, which was when it was an active school. It hasn't been an active school in 20 years.
I understand. I was just comparing, so you had a reference
Yeah, I appreciate that, but it's really, so it's just if we take out the comparison of when it was a school, we're gonna be adding 5.4 trips per hour and having 53 vehicles per day.
That's the peak hour.
Yeah.
So like, say, let's see, when people are coming in from work or whatnot, we can get 5, theoretically.
Yeah.
5 vehicles per hour at peak, and then throughout the entire day, maybe 53 vehicles.
Yeah, it just, your finding is basically saying that the proposed project will have significantly less traffic than the previous use.
I totally agree and completely upfront that the real existing use is 0.
Right.
I had to compare it to something.
I appreciate that, but it's just, for the actual impact it's gonna have on the neighborhood, it is going to be increasing the traffic, correct?
Depends on how you look at it. I was comparing it to the school.
Yeah.
But yeah, sure, I'm not disagreeing.
It's with, this school is situated between 2 intersections that are kind of notoriously hard to navigate. And so, as well as being in the center of the pedestrian path to a heavily trafficked park. So I am concerned about, increasing the traffic without any sort of remediation kind of coming into play, of making sure that we're. Yeah.
We are adding was said before, we are adding a new sidewalk to the Housatonic Park, to allow people to navigate that a little bit easier. Yes.
Mark, I know it's been mentioned in previous conversations about this project, but was there ever a formal request for a DOT study on this section?
Not that I'm aware of. Chris, are you aware of any?
I mean, I would love just to be able to kind of know a little bit more about the actual impact that this will have. I'm also curious about, you're saying it's gonna be 1,800. That's where we're at right now. That's up $50 from your initial proposal last summer. So do you expect it to climb as we get closer to completion as well?
It's certainly possible, but we have an agreement in writing that will be recorded in the registry that limits that rent to 100% of the area median.
Right.
So it can never exceed that amount. We're trying to start below that, so the building has some breathing room to operate successfully.
Of course.
But we also want to hit the market as low as we can,
And you're saying the cap would be about $2,000 a month.
a little bit more.
Okay.
A little bit more than that.
And have you done any market analysis of the immediate surrounding of the market in Housatonic and how these are comparable to any of the rents surrounding the building?
Not specifically Housatonic. I have a broader view of, based on managing and developing property up in Berkshire County for many, many years. And intuitively, I feel that 8 good quality units that rent at $18.50 a month, I think there's a market for it. I'm not uncomfortable at all in offering this product in the community.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like the larger scope, like I agree that it meets the market. But I do know that Housatonic kind of is one of the last sections in town where people can find affordable rents below this. So I am sensitive that this might skew, to very hyper local. I mean, it's just, we're going to be turning a derelict school into a development. It's going to affect property rates and rents. So I just want to make sure we have all the data in hand as we're kind of moving forward, so we understand the impact on Housatonic at large. And I'm just curious, can you tell me what the local neighborhood association you talked to about the access to the park was? You mentioned.
Yes, we talked, is it Angela?
So the Housatonic Improvement Committee?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
I'm a member of.
Yes, she asked if we would consider doing some ground cover in front of the building, out to the property line as much as possible to limit the amount of grass that would have to be maintained. And I said we'd certainly be happy to consider that.
Great. And just one more thing, you mentioned the language on the local preference. And I've gone through this, but I didn't see that. Do we have that available?
Dennis might have it, or if you give me a moment, I can maybe able to follow it up. Chris may also have it. I think he has it. This is something that was done jointly between us and the town, so he may have it faster than me.
I think Chris is looking as we speak.
Yeah.
I have the documents in front of me, the drafts that the town manager, town council, and the developer are working on the purchase and sale and development agreement. But I can't find that particular language offhand. It's always something that can be included if the select board wants to in the special permit, or at a future stage if this is granted in the development agreement.
I have the language, Chris, that I think that is in the document that we're talking about.
Okay, great.
Under item 2 of the development agreement, tenant marketing and selection. Owner shall use its best efforts during the term of this agreement to maintain development at full occupancy. The owner shall advertise the apartments in at least 3 Berkshire County publications, including one in Great Barrington, and its own website, which is linked to national apartment rental websites. Local preference shall be provided to current residents of the town of Great Barrington. Local applicants will be placed into a waiting list to be processed first. When that list has been exhausted, then the non-local applicants will be processed.
Thank you.
Anything else, Ben?
How do you define local?
Lee, go ahead.
Yes, so I'm still kind of fixated on the basement and the loss of 2 units, and the fact that there is such a shortage of housing. And I'm looking at your plans and I see that there's preserved toilets, preserved toilet room 1, preserved toilet room 2, plenty of storage. And I really feel that there's a missed opportunity here to create more housing. And one of the appeals to me when you had proposed it originally was that we were getting 10 units of housing in downtown Housatonic. And now it's scaled back to 8. And it feels that, you know, you've made this choice to scale it back to 8. And I can understand that you want to keep the high quality that you're known for. And I appreciate your high quality. But at the same time, I really feel that, you know, if there's a way to create the 2 extra units that originally proposal had, I would feel more comfortable. And I'm just looking at, you know, the storage that wasn't included in the first proposal. And so, you know, one question is that I really feel that we're missing out on the 2 units that were originally proposed in the first proposal. And I question the use of space. I think there's, you know, kind of a waste of space with this preserved toilet room 1 and toilet room 2. I mean, at least, you know, could it be made for the community or something? And if you're not doing it for historic reasons, you know, why do we have so much space? And then the follow-up question is, are you going to be renting out the storage as an extra amenity for renters, or, you know, is this going to be another way to make money? Or so again, I just want to focus in on the fact that we're losing, you know, a whole floor and losing 2 units. I just want to kind of focus in more on the basement and your decision not to go ahead with the 2 units.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, first of all, originally, the 2 units in the basement were gonna be facing the park. The other side was never gonna be, considered for housing, because of the fact that any natural light would be facing, headlights of a car. It was just not appropriate on that side of the building at all. So on the other side, the issues that arose was the fact that there is no concrete floor down there right now that you could use to build on. And air quality concerns, security concerns, natural light concerns, all built to the point where we decided, and parking concerns. Those are all the reasons in combination that we decided to restrict it to 8. And we could have done more upstairs, but we probably could have had an additional unit per floor, but we would have had to impinge on the large and historic common areas. It's a defining feature of the building. Not a lot of buildings have those big interior hallways the way it is, and it's been identified as a very important feature. We actually had sketched out in coming into that hallway a little bit, and it was rejected by our historic consultants. And ultimately, we agreed.
You want to talk,
So-
I think there's some confusion about the bathroom and why you're
Yeah,
keeping
the
it.
preserved toilet. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there's confusion on Lee's part about that.
There's a suggestion on the part of our historic consultant that there are some historic fixtures in there, and if there's not going to be used for anything, that they should be preserved.
And are you renting out are the units, the rental areas, storage areas down there come with the apartments?
Yes, each apartment will have a designated storage area in the lease. They're not for third parties. Those are, it's a nice amenity. If you do some research up and down the county with self-storage facilities, they're all 100% full. These are homeowners and renters. And so having a 15 by 15 room in a lower level in a building like this, we think is a very, very nice amenity to have today. It's just not, I don't want to overdevelop the building and have units that are just not correct. For a lot of reasons, and all the reasons I mentioned, there's the construction costs of the fact there's no floor, but then there's the living conditions with air quality concerns, moisture concerns, and natural light concerns.
So did you price out what that would cost to put 2 units down and then roll that back once you saw the cost?
It was probably about $50,000 to take up the thin layer and install the new floor. But ultimately, that's not what it was about. It was really about, could you deliver quality units in the basement of that building? And I decided, no.
Garfield, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest with you, I immediately, in the beginning, I actually chose you over the others because of the 10 units, and now we're not getting them, so that is definitely disturbing. And I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to try to add something, and I wish you would add this information in the beginning instead of telling us now. This has been months back, and now you're just finding this out. I might have changed my mind if I had known this now, what I should have known, I think back then when we were given that decision. My question is everything ADA compliant? Like, are the handicapped people on the first floor, and do we have a fire plan, a state road?
The fire protection plan is part of what the architect provides, when we apply for building permit. In terms of ADA, this building does not require any ADA access because of the size of the building and the number of units.
You do have handicap access, is that what you said?
We do, sometimes there are the site plan requirements that require that, and so we have one there.
So if someone who's handicapped, local, could actually be able to navigate in and out then?
I think it would be very difficult because there are a number of steps. There are probably 2 steps coming up into a platform, and then when you get into the building, it's probably, I think, probably 7 steps up to the first level.
Okay. So you do have a fire plan nonetheless.
I have to ask the architect.
You did say,
about
yeah,
fire plan.
you didn't say.
The building will have a complete commercial fire protection system. That may be part of your answer. It will have a complete fire notification system, electronic notification system, and all the bells and whistles inside the units in the common space. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, it wouldn't be bad to post some signs in obvious places and where to go, the arrows, et cetera. I think that's important. People tend to panic when there's a fire regardless of, you know, all the bells and whistles you have.
Right.
They need some direction.
Correct.
Eric, go ahead. Yeah, so I got one last question on the outside and then I got a couple other to follow up with, but just as far as the historic look on the outside, exterior lighting, what is that gonna look like? I saw in the packet that, you know, it's all downward, dark sky, but just general lighting around the building, just at doorways.
Each portico on each end will have a high intensity light, but it's tucked up underneath to provide a lot of lighting at each entrance.
Yeah.
You won't see the light because it's gonna be tucked up underneath, but it'll provide a lot of lighting to that landing and the stairways leading up to it. The parking area, what we have been doing lately in situations like this is we put wall lights that shine down.
Yeah.
About 6 feet high and nothing higher, and it shines out so when people park their car, there's enough light for them to follow that pathway to the either entrance, either side of the building.
Yeah. Sounds good. And then just you know, towards general comments from my fellow select board members, you know, when we started this discussion with the 2 companies, the other company obviously had a much bigger ask from us, from the town. And they were widely open that they would have to dig out around the building to make that basement level usable. And they were clear about that. It was significantly more money to make it that way. So me being in the trades, it's not that much of a surprise to find out, knowing that building really well, that it doesn't make practical sense to put apartments in there when you have half windows, low light, and that close to the ground. So I do understand the pivot here that they're making. It's just added cost and I guess it didn't come as much as a surprise to me because we heard about this. Mr. Carver was nice enough to come to an HIC meeting a while ago and told us his concerns about those 2 apartments at that point. And then again, just speaking to my select board members, this building means a lot to everybody in Housatonic, and it's been a fight, and a lot of committees have come together trying to get something to happen here, and it's been a long road, and I've seen Mr. Carver's work in Pittsfield, St. Mary's, the new fire station. It's right next to my grandmother's house up there, where my father grew up, and the guy delivers, and it's I think we can push a little bit on this, on a few of these issues, but I'm thankful that, you know, we can see the historic value that he wants to put back into this building. And we will have 8 places, which helps the pain that we feel in general in Housatonic. I mean, it is a busy center, you know, Housatonic's getting busy, we have bus pickups and everything there, but it's, for the added traffic, which I understand, Ben, your concern, I think we gotta look at the broad scope of the whole picture and just keep a broad view of what good this is gonna bring to our town, and all the helpful aspects, so. I do get, we're down to apartments those are real numbers, I understand that, but it is a, you know, it's a new high efficiency apartments and in a historic building that has been the center of Housatonic for over 100 years, so.
Yeah, and I would say this then, Lee, and then I haven't had much to say. This building was one RFP from being demolished. If this RFP did not get some quality applicants, which we had to, then I don't think this building would have survived for another attempt at it. And it's a shame because it's a beautiful historic building that really is part of the center of Housatonic. And knowing WDM properties and what they've done and what Dave Carver has done, I'm very satisfied with 8 apartments that are in the center of Housatonic that are quality, instead of having a couple basement apartments. And in my lifetime, many years ago, I lived in a basement apartment, and it isn't as special as people would think. So, yeah, so I'm happy with 8 quality apartments than 10 that are somewhat quality or crowded, putting extra ones in. I think this is gonna be a huge plus for the village of Housatonic, so I'm very satisfied with this. Lee?
Yeah,
Robert,
so-
hold on.
Okay.
One second. Robert,
I wanted to make an architectural comment. So, Eric had mentioned the projects that we did, the fire station and the St. Mary's. We also did, Powerhouse Loss. It was, St. Elizabeth, is that right? Yeah, Elizabeth Church. And in every one of those buildings, when you see the exterior, it sets certain expectations. This looks like a church on the outside. This looks like a fire station on the outside. And when you go into the apartments, the sense of those apartments in every one of those buildings still reminds you of what that building used to be. And that's what we did here. When you walk into this building, you're gonna know that it used to be a school, because we didn't cram 15 apartments into it, because we didn't put people in the basement. We put, in the schools, they didn't put people in the basement. Yeah, they had the cafeteria down there and they had the bathrooms down there, but the classrooms were light-filled, large spaces. And these apartments in this hallway, all of these things reflect internally and externally the expectations and the memory of what that building was. And that's why we do what we did.
Lee, go ahead.
So yeah, just going back to the preserved toilets, when will you know if you have to hold that space for that reason, or is there a chance that could be opened up for, the community to store things for, let's say, the Housatonic, party in the park, or when would you know if that space has to be preserved as such?
I'm not sure the building codes would allow third-party storage in the basement of this building. I don't think so. I mean, it's possible, but that's really a question for our architect, whether or not the building codes would allow third-party storage in the basement. Right now, it's intended to be used specifically for the apartments and the other spaces. Just then, there's 2 corner rooms. One is an old bathroom. In the middle section is all mechanical space, modern mechanical space.
Mm-hmm. So we're not talking a large space for the toilets.
No, there's a toilet in each corner of the basement. Each one had, maybe 8 to 10 stalls, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's not too terribly pleasant space.
No,
And let me say something about, you mentioned the firehouse in Pittsfield, but it's not just the firehouse, it's a couple of the other buildings and churches that we've done. On a first pass basis, like it was when we did the RFP, we didn't know a lot about the building, hadn't been inside, hadn't spent hours. I spent hours walking through these buildings after we think it's something we might want to do. And that changes. The firehouse was gonna have living space in the basement. And we decided against that for the very same reason. It wasn't pleasant for security, we had parking issues. And so, once again, we kept that wide open space, the way it was when it was a firehouse. And there's 4 big storage lockers with sliding doors for each of the residents upstairs. But originally we looked at it and said, let's fill up the building with residential space. But once you start getting into the details and want to end up with the best renovation for the building, things change slightly. I mean, that's the way we develop.
Go ahead.
I just want to echo a lot of what Eric said, that I do think overall this is a net positive. I have my questions and concerns, but I do think this is, you've obviously put a lot of thoughtful effort into this and I appreciate it. I'm curious, timeline. I know that you kind of had that in the RFP. Is that still kind of, I know it's, everything's been pushed out during this process, but are you still thinking that it's along the same lines of what you were thinking last year?
Probably pushed out a little bit. A lot of it has to do with, the planning process and our own thought process of making sure we get the design right. This is a long-term investment that we're gonna hold for a long period of time. But if it takes a little longer, it's okay with us. I know the town's anxious to get something going, but if you look at the amount of work we put into the plans and specs, there's probably 75 pages of engineering drawings that we have that are ready to go.
Yeah.
We have a few more pieces of financing that need to be reviewed and acquired, but we're very, we hope to be able to start some work this fall if we can.
Yeah. And that was the other question I had as far as financing. So is the last pieces in place? If that doesn't come through, does that?
There's only one piece left, just one. That's the UPP program by the state of Massachusetts. Our equity is in place.
Yeah.
Our Berkshire Bank loan is in place. We're waiting for that. And that we were told that was gonna be probably decided upon this month or in October.
Thank you.
Lee, do you have anything else?
No, nothing for me.
Okay, thank you. I should also add that, Mr. Harrison, I know his work and his excitement for the building is very obvious. So, kind of excited to see what this building is gonna look like. Chris, do you have any comments from other boards that would be relevant to this?
As Mr. Mack mentioned, the Conservation Commission reviewed it. They don't have any jurisdiction, or at least the conservation agent reviewed it. The Board of Health reviewed as well, and that's included in your packet. All of these letters are in your packet. The Planning Board made a positive recommendation, that's in your packet, and approved the site plan with the one tweak on the bike rack location. So as part of that process, Planning Board looked at the site plan as a whole, looked at utilities, looked at traffic, looked at water and sewer, building access, parking, and the interior layouts, and made a positive recommendation.
Thank you. I think it's appropriate now that we close the public hearing.
I make a motion to close public hearing.
No, we're gonna close. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion from the board? Roll call vote, Ben.
Aye.
Garfield.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
And I. Select board discussion. I think we've asked our questions, we made some comments. I think part of the conditions would be to listen to our new fire chief and have a sidewalk installed on the east side, which the applicant is willing to do anyways. I'm not sure there are any other conditions that I've heard tonight that would be added to that unless. So, Chris, do you want to go over the findings as we would in most special permits?
Excuse me. Normally I would, Steve, but I'm a little I'm a little hoarse.
Okay, I'll be glad to do it.
Excuse me.
No problem. I'll be glad to do it. Okay, so we have the 6 findings that we religiously follow. For number 1 is social, economic, or community needs which are served by the proposal. And what we do is we'll go through these and either agree with them or make changes to them. So the select board finds the proposal advances important goals of the master plan. Adaptive reuse of the former school, historic preservation, and the creation of additional housing options. The apartments will be affordable at 100% of the area and median income, providing reasonably priced housing options in town. The historic restoration of the building will preserve an iconic building in the center of the village. Is there anything we want to change to that?
I agree with it.
Hearing nothing, traffic flow and safety, including parking and loading. Select board finds that the proposal will have no negative impact on traffic flow or safety, that sufficient parking will be provided. To facilitate cooperative use of the area between the redeveloped school and the town-owned community center, WDM will enter into an access easement or similar agreement with the town if necessary.
So
Ben, how would you like to wordsmith that?
Yeah, I mean, it's because I don't feel that we do know that there will be no negative impact, and I don't think so.
How about a minimal negative impact? Is that still too light?
I could say minimal. I don't know. I mean, because I don't. You know, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of like we don't really have the real like model in hand, you know, of truly how this will impact it based off of its current use and how people are actually using space.
Do you want to change the wording of that for what it's worth?
Never edited on the spot before.
Right, we try not to do that, but we're doing it tonight.
Yeah,
And you'll find out why we don't do it.
yeah.
If it's useful to the board, usually the planning board will require a traffic study if the project will generate more than 100 trips a day. That's just kind of what they do during the site plan review process. In this case, it didn't rise to that level.
Right.
So a formal study wasn't required and wasn't asked for. That's of any help.
Can we ask for one, or is it beyond that point in the process?
We've closed the public hearing.
So that's,
Yeah.
okay.
Don't need to make every finding perfect, buttoned up. One finding may be more positive than another. In order to grant a permit overall, you have to find that on balance, it's a benefit. But you may not like one particular aspect.
Okay.
You may see an aspect that you have particular concerns about that you would like to put a condition on that can mitigate those concerns if you make a specific finding about what that concern is and how the condition would fix that. So the sidewalk, the fire access sidewalk was one thing that's been mentioned. Anyway, so not each one has to be perfectly positive to move forward, if that helps.
If we say that the proposal will have some negative impact on traffic flow, considering that the building is unoccupied at this point,
Yeah,
I think that's a reasonable statement to
yeah,
make.
I agree.
Chris, did you get that? And I don't want to say safety though, because if we thought it was unsafe, I think we would put conditions on it. And I don't know that we can say that it's unsafe. It's just.
Yeah. I know. I feel like it's a larger conversation to be had, especially about the way pedestrian safety is incorporated into the Uzi Dome and now this property and going to the park. It's just,
Well, how about we do this, and it's not a trade-off for tonight.
Yeah.
But at some point over the winter, we get Joe Aberdell there.
Yeah.
That's
I think
what the
that- yeah.
discussion is.
Yeah,
You're right.
yeah, because I think a lot of this, it will fall onto us to
Yeah.
kind of like do that last mile of just incorporating this into pedestrian.
Right.
safety.
Now that we have, assuming this passes tonight, now that we have this.
Yeah.
We know what that area is going to look like. How do we make it as safe as possible, et cetera.
Possibly.
Yeah.
So we'll change the wording as you said.
Yes.
A second ago.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Three, adequacy of utilities and other public services. Select Board finds that the proposed use will have no detrimental impact on the public water or public sewer systems, since some of the utilities, including electric and sewer, will be located across the town-owned community center site and the park. WDM will enter into easements or similar agreements with the town if necessary.
I'm okay with that.
Not hearing otherwise.
Nothing.
Okay.
Neighborhood character and social structures. The Select Board finds the proposal is in an HVC zone where the proposed use may be allowed by special permit. The proposal will maintain the architectural character of the building and the neighborhood, and the residential use is in keeping with the neighborhood. The green space provided on the east side of the building will complement the open space character of the adjacent village park. Everyone's good?
Mm.
Impacts on the natural environment. Select Board finds that the proposed removal of pavement and installation of new landscaping will have a beneficial impact on the environment. Building will be made more energy efficient, which will benefit the environment.
Mhm.
And I don't believe adding the sidewalk negates that statement.
No, I don't think so.
Potential fiscal impact, including impact on town services, tax base, and employment. Select Board finds that the proposal will have fiscal benefits for the town. It will result in taxable real estate on a currently tax exempt municipal property and will increase housing for the workforce, supporting the local economy. Not hearing otherwise. So there's so the one we made an amendment to the findings. And we have only added one proposed condition. So let's try this now. Lee, can you read this or do you want me to?
Sure. Yeah, I can do it. I move to approve the findings of fact for special permit number 938-23 as amended and referenced as Exhibit A.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none. Roll call vote. Ben.
Aye.
Garfield.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
And aye. It's unanimous. This vote on the special permit.
I move in view of the approved findings of fact to approve special permit 938-23 for WDM Properties, care of David Carver, for an 8-unit multi-unit residential redevelopment in the former Housatonic School at 207 Pleasant Street, Housatonic.
With
The following conditions, with the following conditions of
a sidewalk added onto the
si-
east side.
yeah, sidewalk added onto the east side. That was it.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion. Hearing no discussion, Ben.
Aye.
Garfield.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
And aye, it is unanimous. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, so next one is a real estate transfer fee proposal from Select Board and Planning Board Housing Subcommittee. Lee, why don't you introduce this, then I'm going to talk about the process after Lee introduces it.
Sure. So included in your packet, dated September 13th, 2023, I included a proposed special act on property transfer fees that the Select Board members have in front of them. And in it, I outlined some of the main points of the proposed special act, which I'll just briefly touch upon right now. I request that the Great Barrington Select Board consider including a proposed special act establishing a real estate transfer fee upon the transfer of real property in the town of Great Barrington to the special town meeting warrant planned for October 23rd, 2023. We currently find ourselves with the need to protect and expand affordable and workforce housing. And to do this, we must pursue bold and creative avenues for revenue generation without causing further challenges to those seeking to buy average price homes in Great Barrington. Briefly, I'll go over some of the steps. Under current state law, the town of Great Barrington cannot institute a transfer fee without the approval of the state legislature. Therefore, I am first seeking the consent of the Great Barrington Select Board to include a home rule petition article on the special town meeting warrant. The town meeting warrant votes in the affirmative, the special act will go to the legislature to be filed. If the legislature approves, we will have the opportunity at that time to craft the bylaw that will guide the implementation and regulation of the fee. This bylaw will then need to be passed at town meeting. The proposed special act would allow the town to impose up to a 2% property transfer on select properties in town. The proposed bylaw that would subsequently be written would allow the town to impose a 1% transfer fee on the sale of properties exceeding a purchase price of $1 million, subject to a number of exemptions. This approach gives town meeting the authority to regulate the proposed fee by bylaw instead of locking the town into set parameters at the state level. It also allows flexibility to assess metrics and adjust in the future if needed. Some of the proposal highlights, as I said, the 1% fee will be applied to all real estate transactions exceeding a purchase price of $1 million. After the first year, the $1 billion threshold will be annually adjusted to reflect the consumer price index for the area, thereby protecting homeowners as their nest eggs grow. The fee will be split between the buyer and the seller. Each is responsible for 0.5% of the sale price. Fee revenue would replenish the Affordable Housing Trust Fund each year, providing a reliable annual stream to leverage additional funds and better plan strategically. Exempt from the fee shall be, among other things, transfers between family members, transfers for a value of less than $100, transfers as a result of marital dissolution, transfers between governmental units, and transfers for affordable housing. Annual reports will detail transfer fee revenue and housing impacts. The case for a special town meeting vote. The timing of an October vote is critical. With worsening housing costs and unaffordability trends, Governor Healy is anticipated to introduce a housing omnibus bill this fall, including language for all pending real estate transfer fee home rule petitions to move forward. Governor Healy's enthusiasm for attacking the housing crisis has made advocates hopeful that the decade-long logjam will break this session. Joint Housing Committee Chair Senator Lydia Edwards also indicated this building momentum during her visit to Great Barrington last week. A seat at the table. Amherst is currently the only municipality outside the Cape, Islands, or Eastern Massachusetts to file a home rule petition. Western Massachusetts is being left out of the conversation. The more Western Massachusetts municipalities that file petitions, the more our region's interests and needs will be considered. For example, at the state level, some bills establish the fee only for transfers over $2 million, which may work for Nantucket, but not in Great Barrington. If Great Barrington acts swiftly, it is more likely that its petition will be included in the hearings with the other bills and considered in the same early round. In short, Great Barrington should be at the table to negotiate the housing bill and should have its home rule petition considered at the earliest opportunity. With a special town meeting for a potential school district merger planned, with an estimated cost of $5,000, it makes sense to include a transfer home rule petition vote on the warrant. Higher attendance at special town meeting means increased engagement. Both articles are extremely linked and focus on ensuring that the sustainability and vitality of this community are kept alive for future generations. As repeatedly noted by school administrators, housing costs have made recruitment efforts difficult for the local school districts. Housing is a very real piece of enhancing educational opportunities for students.
Thank you, Julie. So just for the edification of the select board tonight, we have two decisions to really make. One is whether we're going to endorse the real estate transfer fee. And the second is to our intentions to place it on the warrant for the special town meeting. we're not, I think we have to, we should decide that tonight. We will be doing the whole warrant article in a few weeks, but I think tonight we have to make kind of a decision on that. So that's my role as chair. Now, I'll go first and speak on how I feel. I think there's two parts to this, so let me speak on the October 23rd special town meeting, and Lee knows how I feel, and I utmost respect for Lee, and we almost always agree, but we don't always, and that's okay, that's what life is about. The town meeting, the special town meeting, it was called to decide whether Great Barrington, one of 8 towns, is going to approve the warrant article concerning the merger of the 2 school districts. I think we owe it to our students to reserve this meeting for the merger process and simple housekeeping items. I don't think this belongs, I don't think a controversial item belongs on this one. I think we have one chance to do a service to our students. It's a disservice to the students, the 8 towns involved, and the 24 members of the Regional School District Planning Board. I'm a member of that planning board as select board chair here and as chair of the school committee. It's been 3.5 years, hundreds of meetings. I haven't attended them all, but, and I think that this meeting, this special town meeting will be talked about for years, as other special town meetings will be talked about. Some of them that are huge failures. You can look up simulcast racing. That would be one that had a huge turnout, that took close to 700 people. And didn't pass, clearly, because we don't have simulcast racing. I don't think this topic is emergent. And even if a majority of the board tonight endorses it, I think it can wait till the annual town meeting. I'm never one to rush into things. Maybe as I get older, I realize that rushing into things always have gotten me into trouble. So we have a number of choices tonight, and when I try to put this down, it maybe gets confusing. We can approve the real estate transfer fee and place it in the October 23rd special town meeting warrant. We can approve the real estate transfer fee and make our intentions clear to put it on the annual town meeting warrant in May. We're not setting that warrant now, but that would be, our intentions. Or we can vote no on the real estate transfer fee, and there is no town meeting to put it on. So, I think we have a whole bunch to discuss tonight. That's just my really strong opinion about putting it on this town meeting, special town meeting. But I also think that we have a lot to discuss about the real estate transfer fee, which I have a whole nother discussion. But let's start by talking about whether we want it on this town meeting or not. We're not going to discuss whether it goes on the annual because we don't know if we're approving it. But I think at least the discussion about how we feel about this town meeting, because if we don't put it on this town meeting, and this is where it gets a little confusing, we say we're not going to, we don't necessarily have to vote on it tonight. It's not going on this town meeting. There's not the urgency if it is going on this town meeting. So I'm willing to hear. We always have good discussion, respectful.
I was curious, Lee, can you kind of explain the reasoning or just kind of the process of what would happen if it does go in October and it gets passed, the bill that's currently working its way through, and how quickly then, if that happened, I guess the difference between if this passes at our town meeting and then goes to the state and passes, how quickly would we actually start seeing this in effect? Versus if you, and just timeline and all that.
Absolutely, sure. So on September 13th, Secretary Augustus, who's the housing secretary, the newly appointed housing secretary, he mentioned during a study session of what he hinted at what might be included in the upcoming bond bill. And what is thought is that during this month or beginning of October, that Governor Healy will introduce this bill, and this will be the first major standalone bill that she puts forward to address the state's housing problem. So there's been, I believe, 18 municipalities that have lined up to try to get transfer fees in place for the reason of the housing shortage and the unaffordability crisis that's happening. So there's this great momentum happening, and with Governor Healy behind this, and with the co-chair of the housing committee that visited us just last week, there's this momentum, and when this bill is announced in the next couple of weeks, it is anticipated that this local option transfer tax or transfer fee will be included. And any cities and towns that have gotten in line, that have passed home rule petitions, they're going to be the ones that will be sitting at the table to mold the greater enabling bill, which will serve as a tool that municipalities will no longer need to have home rule petitions. So what's it's gonna look like is, right now, all these different municipalities are fixing, putting together what works for them. And initially, what's going to happen is that on a state level, with this local option transfer tax or transfer fee that Governor Healy is going to be putting forward in this housing bill coming up in the next week or next month, there's going to be a momentum to actually frame it. So what it's going to look like. So what's the threshold going to be? Is it going to be $1 million? Is it going to be $2 million? And what we want to be is, we want to be part of that conversation, because if they mold this to just suit Nantucket or just suit Boston or just suit the Cape, that have very, very, different values in terms of their appreciation, we're going to get out of the loop, and then we're not going to be able to right size this for our needs. Stockbridge, I was invited to the Stockbridge Selectboard meeting just a few days ago, and I spoke to them. They're very, very interested in getting on board. West Stockbridge, the chair of the West Stockbridge Planning Select Board, was in attendance. I've had other calls. So this is a regional issue, and we need a regional solution. And the more that we can come on board and take the lead as Great Barrington, as someone that's representing Western Massachusetts, and say we want to be seated at the table, that'll give us a greater advantage to shape it. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to be locked into it. All this does is put our foot in the door. This gives us the ability to negotiate and to be seated at the table and to listen and to add our 2 cents and to say we matter. Otherwise, what's going to happen is Boston's going to shape this, Nantucket, Cape, and we're going to be left out of it. And our affordability the crisis is going to worsen here. And we all know that, there's people coming in that are purchasing houses as their second and third homes, as their investment properties, and they're pushing out local residents. And it takes money to create housing, and it takes money to create programs that keep local residents in place. And without this money, it's going to be very, very hard to stop this tidal wave that's happening. And all this this transfer fee does is it gives us the ability to shape our future and to say, when it does come back to town meeting, okay, where are we now? What's the threshold? How much money do we need? Maybe it's not a right time, but it gives us the ability to make that decision. Now, the critical message with October is that because of this timing, because with Governor Healy literally announcing this in the next few weeks and looking like that this is going to be rolled into it from the housing secretary's hints at it just 2 weeks ago or less than a week ago, this is going to be put forward. So the more that we can get out of the gate and say, okay, we are representing Western Massachusetts, we are taking the lead, the stronger our position will be. So what my position is that the timing is right. There's many municipalities that have been waiting up to 10 years for this. And we've come at a time that we want to be part of the discussion. And it's not being rushed. The housing subcommittee has been working on this for more than 8 months. And, obviously the select board has it. We've had a, public, we had an option and we had the public speak to it. So it hasn't been rushed at all. It's been part of the discussion, for more than 8 months. And it's something that does affect the schools. The school administrators repeatedly have talked about, bus drivers not being able to be recruited because of the housing affordability issues, teachers not being able to find homes, families having to move out. From my, close work with Construct, I'm on a weekly basis seeing local residents, having to leave their homes and move out of this town because of, the prices are just too high. So this brings us, the ability to have revenue generated to the Affordable Housing Trust that they can locally control, because local money is local control. So the difference with this is, we're not being dependent on state and federal funds. So we're not going to be looking to big housing lotteries. We're having money that comes from, high-end real estate that mostly is coming from from second and third homes and investment properties, and is going into a local affordable housing trust fund, which can then divvy out to local residents and programs that will help us. So our sustainability is at risk. So this is something that is going to affect us down the line. And if we keep pushing it down the line and say, we'll deal with it in May, that's just not acceptable, because the housing crisis is real. It's here to stay. We have crosshairs on the back. We have, people, we are the next Nantucket. We are the next Jackson Hole. And, with the climate migration, we are next in line, and we can't keep pushing this down. We can't keep pushing this under the rug. And it is a crisis. And to treat it as not a crisis, I think is disingenuous. And I understand and appreciate Steve's thoughts about this. And I know he's been working very, very hard. And I've had discussion with the superintendent, Dylan, about this. And this is not a way to hijack this. This is something that actually will bring in more engagement, more community focused, more people thinking about the future of this town and what we want this town to be. So I think it actually works together. And with the possibility of the CPC projects that are talking about housing, this works completely in the same realm. If we're going to bring to CPC projects dealing with housing, why not bring something that is so substantial and so effective potentially to the voters? So basically it's just letting the voters vote. So I think for us to stop that process and not let the voters have their chance would not be something that I would recommend. So I really hope that the town, that the select board members let the voters decide. And, obviously the district, the merger, that'll be the number one vote. That'll be the first on the warrant. And if people leave after that, so be it. But I think we're going to get more engagement. We're going to get families there. We're going to be talking about the future generations, and the sustainability of our community. So I think it actually works.
Excellent. Garfield, do you have anything?
Yes. I don't have a problem with the concept. I think it's needed. I don't think this is I bought my home over 36 years ago at 68K. No matter what I do to it, would never be over $1 million. So I know it won't affect myself, and probably not going to affect about 90% or more of the people in Great Barrington. So I know money makes people get a little nervous and pucker up a little bit, but I think it is needed. I'm not sure if I think it's needed to speak about right now. I know I'm on the Affordable Housing and the subcommittee, but I'm just a little concerned about, even though we spoke about 8 months, I don't think it's been really out for 8 months to be discussed. So I don't want to say no to it. I definitely think it's a good idea. I will endorse it for sure, but maybe in May as opposed to putting it on October.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know, it's hard for me to discuss schedule without discussing the whole thing.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So, I have my doubts about this transfer tax in general. I do admire everything Lee does and what she says and her energy that she puts into all this, but I think about it just in the image let me just start again here. The beginning, our open session with the public, I thought was amazing. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that came out. And I've just been thinking long and hard on this topic, because I get calls every day for apartments. My father had some, I have some. And I see how real it is, and people struggling to find places. And it's a mass problem. And I feel that we would be, in Great Barrington specifically, doing a disservice if we approve this, for asking people that for the start already pay 14,000 plus a year in taxes, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 12 years, and then they sell their home. And we want a piece of that margin that they just made, without taking into consideration what they bought it for, what they invested in it. How much taxes they paid over the 10, 15, or even just 5 years that they paid for it. I understand it, and I do feel, I want the Affordable Housing Trust to have a bigger budget than they have. I think we can get it from our budget that we create every year. I think that the CPA should allot them more money. There's no doubt that they should get more money. And I just don't feel that this is the right way to do it. I don't always necessarily feel that Great Barrington itself has to be the leader in this. And then just to not enter a whole bigger discussion, but honestly, I feel that we're subsidizing all the other towns with our affordable housing. And I don't see many of them stepping up. And that's a whole 10-hour discussion right there. But it's honestly, I just don't feel that with the taxes, I mean, whether you own $100,000 house in Great Barrington or a $2 million house, it's hard to pay your tax bill. It's not easy. It's not easy for anybody, especially when you can look down the road a few miles and see all these other towns with low tax rates. They use our libraries, they use our roads, everything else. They don't have any affordable housing. They're doing nothing for it. And I'm not saying that's right. I'm just generally speaking my mind on this topic, and it makes me frustrated on multiple levels. So I understand that your heart is definitely in the right place. I completely understand it's an emergency, it's at a crisis, and it's something I've thought about a lot, but it's, we're kind of targeting a group here that, whether it's a long-standing family house and all of a sudden they just found it with the recent thing that they're living in $1 million house, but that doesn't mean that their bottom line is huge. We don't know about medical emergencies, loans, liens. I think Vivian brought up those points, and it's, maybe they were using that house to pay for their kids' education. It doesn't mean it's a windfall when they sell it. And then whether it's 0.5% or whatever it is, just doesn't sit. This source of funding just doesn't sit right with me. And it's not easy. It's not an easy topic. And if it was to go to town meeting, I would want it to have as much public debate as possible. And it does seem like we're moving towards a 2-night town meeting in May. And I'm sure there'll be a lot to talk about. And although at the end of the day, I don't think my mind's going to change between now and then, but I would rather see it happen then, I guess.
So I think you're right, Eric. It's hard to separate one from the other, the date and the transfer fee. And I jotted down some thoughts about this. This isn't about the Affordable Housing Trust. That's not the issue. Affordable Housing Trust has done an amazing job and will continue to do so. Starting from scratch. I mean, they're one of the newest boards we have. The Selectboard, Planning Board, Housing Subcommittee, that's not the issue this evening. They have a whole, 20 items that they've come up with. I have concerns about the real estate transfer fee. One is when we do something like this, we normally would ask for recommendations of other boards, the Finance Committee, the Planning Board, the Affordable Housing Trust themselves. Anecdotally, individual members of all 3 committees have expressed their concerns with this proposal, but we haven't asked for a formal recommendation for them. I'm definitely not prepared to vote yes on the real estate transfer fee this evening. I think the town needs a comprehensive plan to deal with affordable housing and workforce housing. A piecemeal approach, I think, is destined for failure. We need to explore all options in our toolbox to deal with affordable housing and workforce housing. Choose the ones most appropriate for our town. At the listening sessions a few weeks ago, there were enough citizens who had concerns about the fee that I think we should listen to them. I'm not prepared to rush into a political decision based on what other towns have decided that is the best option for them. We need to do what's best for Great Barrington, not best for any other towns in the Commonwealth. I'm not prepared to rush into a political decision because of a possible bill that may be approved in Boston in November. We've heard about a lot of possible things that are gonna happen in Boston. And we're still represented there, and even if we approve this tonight, put on the warrant and it gets approved, Barrington's never had a seat at the table, neither has most other small towns. It's just the way it is. It's where the votes are that have the most say. We can't solve the housing issues on the backs of our residents, taxpayers. Just can't do that. It's unfair and will cause a further financial burden for our taxpayers, and that really concerns me. In the end, the real estate transfer fee may be what's right for Great Barrington. I'm not convinced that now is the right time. I'm not convinced that we're ready to do this. So I have two problems with it. I have utmost respect for Lee and the other committees. I'm really concerned that we have one shot at a merger between two districts, and we're gonna put something on there that's controversial. You want to put something on there that's a transfer of $25,000 because it's needed to be done. And since we have a town meeting, it's a convenient time to do it. Terrific. But to put two such high pressure items on the same town meeting really concerns me. And I really think the time between now and May will give us time to really research and figure out what's best for this town. It may be a crisis, but acting quickly or acting piecemeal, I don't think it's gonna solve the crisis. I know there's a crisis. But that's just how I feel. Lee, go ahead.
So thank you. I respect everyone's comments. A couple things. Right now, the money that's being generated to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is coming directly from taxpayers. It's coming from the special article. So it's not, not coming from taxpayers, actually coming directly from taxpayers. Whereas this is a fee that would be paid just for a small portion of those that have properties that they're buying or selling over $1 million. So right now, the money that's coming to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is coming directly from taxpayers. So this is actually coming from a fee on high price real estate. So that's I just want to make that point. The second point about appreciation, there's people that the appreciation, I believe, that has been made by on single family homes in 5 years, I believe it's 73%, if I have my figures right. So there's, people have made a lot of wealth from their homes, which is great. And, they purchase them for a very, very good rate, and they've made quite a substantial amount. So what this comes down to is if it's $1 million, you'd be splitting it between, a buyer and seller. So it would be $5,000. Many people contribute to charities. And this is something that is giving back to the community. It's something that is ensuring that the future of this town can go forward and it can be sustainable, and that our youth can continue to live here and return here. So, with the money that the Affordable Housing Trust, we've seen it. I am on the CPC, and that did come up that the more money should be put into housing, and that doesn't happen. Time and time again, we can say that more money should be devoted to housing from the CPC, and time again that doesn't. And every year they have to grovel for money, and it's very, very hard for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to plan strategically and to set up programs and to actually save residents that on a daily basis are being literally taken from their homes and being forced to move out. So we can say that, we don't want to have a piecemeal approach, but without having money, without having the ability to hire a consultant, without having the ability, the housing subcommittee has worked very, very tirelessly working on a housing initiative sheet. And when we look at the end of it, it's like you need money. It comes down to money. So this is a way to generate money. This is a way that will keep most of the people out of the fee, and will just target the speculators. And what's happening is there's a disconnect between the assessment value and what people are paying. And all this is trying to do is bring that in line and give us a fair shot and just try to keep this. So I respect everyone's decisions, but I do feel that, we talk about piecemealing, but it comes down to money. And the fact is that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund does not have money. The CPC, they're working very, very hard, but they're not primarily there to fund, housing initiatives. They have 4 different categories they have to look after. So, this is just a way to try to address a crisis. And all my ask is to bring it to the voters. And if the voters decide, not to go forward, so be it. But for us to prevent that even discussion happening, I would just ask for us to step aside and let that discussion happen.
I think the Affordable Housing Committee could very well do with some extra monies. We can do a lot with it, and we have to get money from the CPC or CPA. It's groveling. And we should, we're all on the same team. People seem to forget it. And some of the people that are opposed to it, their homes are not in that category. You will not be charged. I'm sorry, but you're not going to be charged anything, Stephen. I'm sure not. I don't know about Ben, but I know that it's not going to affect quite a few people in this way. I don't know if I want it now, but I definitely want it. And I think we shouldn't have to gravel. We could do more with money. And I think Fred would tell you the same thing. The affordable housing would do much better with more income.
And one thing sorry.
Lee Ben's coming.
I think there's a really strong argument to, having the cash on hand, allowing them to be more nimble and actually, getting in on these projects. So I think so much when we talk about affordable housing, we often hear people complaining about, the fact that we get state money, we're open up to the lotteries, the state lists, and that we feel like we're not providing housing for true, people locally who are already looking for housing. So I think there's a big advantage to this. And I do think it's worth something to ask the townspeople. I guess my question, Steve, is as far as the town meeting on the 23rd, it's all one night, right? There's no overflow baked into that. There's not like a Thursday.
There's no,
so it's just,
right now. Couple things with the CPC, and I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent, but there's 2 parts there. I started the discussion with the chair, and I don't know how far to go, but I want them to look at a different way of funding the Affordable Housing Trust. There's no doubt that the CPC is a project-oriented group. That's the way it's formed. The Affordable Housing Trust is not a project-oriented group in the sense that they're not going to come forward with a project necessarily for May. They may have a project in June. So if they had that money, it can be nimble. So if they come to the CPC, I would love, and I haven't talked to Chris about this yet. I would love for them to say to them, we'd like 300,000 this year for what may come up. Not for them having to bring a project forward at that time. If that's allowed, that would make a lot more sense because they're swimming upstream. They're trying to bring a project forward that may not be the best project for them to bring forward, but there may be one in July that's a perfect project that they should bring forward, but they can't do that. The other thing on tonight's agenda, and with Lee's in the hospital, I'm not going to bring this up tonight. The select board, because of Lee's job, because of the ethics ruling, doesn't get a vote on affordable housing. And my hope was that we could have an alternate who could just vote on that, which I'd be willing to do. But unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be in the rules to allow an alternate. So we have another problem there. But right now, there's only 8 members voting on that. And we, which I think we're a pretty important group and should get a vote on it, aren't getting a vote on it. And, I think we all agree that the Affordable Housing Trust needs support. And, well, that's for another time. So I think we have 2 decisions, or at least one to make tonight. One obviously makes the other one move for at least a little while. But yeah, go ahead.
Can I say something? Yeah. So 2 things. So I believe the presentation on the special town meeting is going to be approximately 20 minutes. I talked to some school administrator. So it's not going to be a very, very lengthy presentation. And
You're gonna tell
not
me
to
how
say
long the discussion's gonna be?
No, I know. I'm getting to that. But so what I'm saying is that there is a chance after the presentation that it's not going to be as long as we think. Whereas if this goes to the annual town meeting, as we saw last year with the 2-day fiasco with, people getting upset that, it went on for on and on. I mean, this is what we're looking at. So if we have this heavy, controversy or, controversial article, potentially in the warrant, that's what we're staring down. So to actually get this, looked at and discussed and on the warrant in October, rather than pushing on to an annual town meeting that will, make that even longer, that's one argument I want to make. And also, again, for us, what we saw with the short-term rental bylaw, people really, really care about what's happening on the street. And there's this whole grassroots effort of people that are seeing their friends being evicted, that, have families, that have watched families leave town because they can no longer afford to live here. And for us to not allow a vote in October, I think it is something that we have to think about, because all I'm asking for is the town to be allowed to discuss this and have a vote. And it doesn't mean that this bylaw or any transfer fee is going to take place. As I mentioned in my memo, is that it's a whole, has to go to the legislature, and then it would ultimately come back to town meeting to finalize and fine tune the threshold. So it's something that is very urgent in terms of the timing and us getting our feet in the door and making sure that we're represented. But once we do that, then, then it's gone. We don't need to worry about that. So all I'm asking is for the residents to be allowed to debate this. And as I said, this has been 8 months, at least 8 months of discussion, and we have, had a public input session. So it's nothing new. It's something that would be presented. And, I did have discussions with school administrators to discuss, having the two items on the warrant. And I understand absolutely that, the school merger is number one, but, with the cost of the special town meeting and the fact that, this is pushed to an annual town meeting, it's just going to lengthen that annual town meeting into the same problem that we had last year. So I appeal that, we let the residents have the opportunity to vote in October.
So a couple of things. Thinking that anything that's done in Boston is going to happen quickly doesn't really appeal to me. And second of all, if this money was going to become available in 6 months, then I'd say, well, that's the Affordable Housing Trust. We should think about it, but I still wouldn't be in favor of it. But we've gone time and time again with things that go through Boston, and I'm not convinced that a few months is going to make a difference. I hope you're right that the town meeting, the discussion is an hour and a half and this passes unanimously, but you can't guarantee that. And I want everyone there at that town meeting to concentrate on one thing, and that's the school merger. I don't want them to be thinking about a second subject that we have to talk about. And as far as the school goes, I will tell you right now, not one school administrator, not the school committee, no one has endorsed this being on the October town meeting. So if they have privately, it's not for public consumption, and it definitely not to me.
Well, I just, respectively, Steve, I know that, you wear two hats. So you're the chair of the school committee and the chair of this board. So you obviously have strong feelings about that.
Yeah, no, that's true. Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I just, on another note, just, I would be concerned as for the October meeting, having as broad of a attendance of people as our standard Maytown meeting. So I do hope that everybody turns out. Obviously, I know we need a quorum. I just feel that a May meeting would give us a more accurate count of the town, I guess. I hope I'm wrong that both meetings are extremely well attended, but I worry that that it would be sided askewed the vote if it was in October and not a full view of the town. So I also feel, I mean, if I remember correctly, when we voted for the CPA to enact the CPA tax on our real estate bills, that was at the ballot box. And new taxes, I kind of feel, honestly, should be there. But I do understand our town meeting and why people say that, but I feel that normally, on a election year, we get a better attendance there when it's a big bill, like I think we'll have this year. So I think it would give a broader view of what the Great Barrington voter wants, so.
And just for a correction, I'm really here, I'm not sitting here as chair of the school committee, chair of the select board. Really sitting here as being on the regional school district planning board and having sat through these very tedious discussions and really caring about the kids. And I don't think that that's a conflict. I was put there because I'm a select board member. So, but that's just my opinion. Everyone has right to their own. What's our pleasure this evening? I'll take any proposal that.
I make
comes
a,
forward.
yeah, I make a motion to add a proposed special article to the special town meeting as outlined in the memo.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion.
I mean, I get it. Like I'm hesitant to add anything that keeps a group of people in the auditorium of Monument Mountain past 10 o'clock on a Monday night. I think that's a broader discussion about how we hold these meetings that we need to have, because I think just even having them on a Monday night to start disenfranchising a large part of the population. Just it's hard to get there. But I also I do feel the argument for urgency on this. I do. Like it's just and if I know it's never with Boston. There's no guarantees, but I think at least trying to get in on it and start this quicker. And so we can come back to us to make our final decision does make sense. And I hope anyone who doesn't want to stay talk about it after the school would go home and get some sleep.
You gotta understand,
Yeah.
I respect everyone's opinion here. I don't take anything personally.
Yeah.
And, you know, we all, 5 of us work really hard. 4 of you really work really hard, and you can all decide whether I do or not. But, so whatever we decide.
Yeah.
Is what we think is best for the town of Great Barrington. So we have a motion and we have a second, so it is a roll call vote.
Well, just wanted
Yeah,
to
go
know
ahead.
the discussion
Sorry.
in there. I am aware of the urgency. I am on those committees. I think it's necessary. I know I've been on the subcommittee. We've been doing this for about 8 months. We do have a long list. I think it needs to be done. Again, I have concerns about now, but I would be highly disappointed and upset if this did not come to the voters even in May. I think that would be an egregious mistake.
Anyone else? We're not taking public comment, and the reason being, we already had a public input session, so.
I believe the select board decided that the policy would be that before you vote on critical issues, you would hear comment.
We did. We had a public input session.
That
What if
was
it's about the
on the
meeting?
content. That
Okay.
was not on-
Okay, I will do that, and including people online. I will take very brief discussion. Yes, I will do that. Go ahead.
Frederick Clark, 388 Park Street, Housatonic. And just to clarify on the CPA, there are a number of towns that get an allocated percentage of the CPA to the housing trust. Many towns do, including Lennox and Williamstown in this county, rather than that. So I don't want to talk about housing prices. We already talked about that. The transfer fees coming. Lee shared a statewide editorial last week. Maybe some of you saw it. Basically, the thrust of the writer was housing should pay for housing. And that's what I believe is housing should pay for housing. This is a housing issue. It should be related. The vote tonight is not on the bylaw. And I just want to emphasize that. The vote tonight is only on the first phase of sending a request for a home rule petition. There'll be ample discussion to craft the bylaw later. But what Lee has said is that it's important that we be part of that discussion. And the only way we can do that is to show our vote through the town meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Let me just see if Eric or James Garzone, if you want to raise your hand again, I will recognize you briefly, and then Michelle, we'll go. Eric, go ahead.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate it. So again, quickly, Lee, thank you for all of the work you've done on this. Affordable housing stuff. I hear everyone's comments. It is a crisis. I do agree with it. But I do believe that the quickest way to achieve funding for this crisis is through the CPA funds that we've already collected. As everyone's saying, Great Barrington is a tax burdened town. The residents here are tax burdened. It doesn't really matter to me what the value of your house is. We're all tax burdened. We really need to be respectful of, people's feelings. And I think Eric actually said it the best. This is a statewide problem. Maybe we should pull our resources together with the other towns around and really make this a regional approach to solve the housing crisis and not shoulder another service that Great Barrington provides to all the surrounding towns. Thanks.
Thank you. Michelle, go ahead.
Michelle Gobert, 70 Division Street. I'm not going to speak about the real estate transfer fee. As Steve said, we had the public hearing on it. I'm opposed to it. And my house is not $1 million house. I don't think we need another tax in Great Barrington. My comment is going to do with the democratic process at annual town meeting, at the special town meeting. It's a Monday night, has been brought up. Most people are at work all day. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm at my desk in a public school district by 7. We're talking about, this is a regional issue. Well, we're talking about an 8-town merger that has been, as Steve put out for years, this has been worked on. It's hugely important that people focus on this. So, however, I'm hearing about families. Well, you go to the special town meeting, those families have to get their little ones up for school the next morning. They're going to, and we went to the 8-town merger meeting. It was 2.5 hours. It wasn't a 20-minute presentation. So you're going to have these families there for the 8-town merger. Hopefully we have the families there, that's their children. And then they're going to say, well, I got to get home. I got to get up and go to work tomorrow morning. What I'm seeing is a pattern here at meetings where another controversial issue is coming up. And as Ms. Davis said, if the people leave, so be it. That's not democracy. That's not democracy. Those people are going to be tired. They're taking care of their kids. And so you're excluding them from another vote. So I think it is my opinion that the 8-town merger should be the standalone warrant article, other than housekeeping, like transfer 25,000, whatever. I don't know if you could have any control over the citizen petitions that may come forward. Just so you know, on the 8-town merger, I've been approached by numerous people saying they're hesitant about voting on it publicly. So they've asked me to call for a secret ballot. So there's going to be another procedure that's going to go on during that meeting. And I do think it's a disservice to the 8-town merger work and vote to load the warrant. This is a controversial issue. It's going to go well into the late hours of the special town meeting. But push it to the May annual town meeting. That could be a 2-night meeting or whatever. But we have to look at the process of our town meetings, as you brought up, Ben. But for that one in October, there's just so much stuff going on. People in Housatonic, they're under a huge amount of stress. We have that hearing coming up next week regarding the water. So, I mean, you have a community that is anxious and nervous, and they don't know what they're going to do. Let's just focus on this 8-town merger for now and go through the special town meeting. And then the transfer fee could be the first thing on that damn warrant in the May if you want it. All right, thank you.
No other hands up. Lee, is your hand up?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, great. So we have a motion to place the real estate transfer fee on the special town meeting for October 23rd. We have a motion, a second. It's a roll call vote. Ben,
Aye.
Garfield,
I'm gonna abstain.
No.
Lee,
Aye.
and no, so it fails for lack of a majority. Okay. 7A. Title VI non-discrimination policy, review public comment and adoption of Title VI non-discrimination policy for federally funded transportation related programs. Mark,
Actually, Chris is gonna take.
Chris, I'm sorry.
Hi, can you hear me again?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, Steve. In your packet tonight is an executive summary on this topic. It's page 82 of your packet. As it states, we are a recipient of federal funds for our transportation program, the Tri-Town Connector, the microtransit program. As a recipient of those funds, we need to enact a non-discrimination policy in compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The policy accomplishes several key goals, including a statement of the policy to operate the transportation program without regard to race, color, and/or national origin. It also provides notification to the public of their rights under Title VI. It provides information in English and Spanish, as well as access to Spanish-speaking staff, as well as procedures to deal with complaints and how the policy was developed. The draft is in your packet as well. This was out for public review at the libraries. There were notices on the transit vehicles, in the newspapers, and in the libraries. I did have 2 sessions, admittedly during the day. Nobody attended those, but I also haven't received any communications by phone or email. It's my recommendation at this point for the select board to go ahead and approve this non-discrimination policy. We'll get it in place. It can be amended as needed. We'll look at it at least every year to make sure we're doing what we need to do.
Thank you, Chris. Do I have a motion? Lee?
I don't have it in front of me. Can someone else read it, please?
Let's see, I'll make a motion to approve the Title VI non-discriminatory policy.
Okay.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Ben?
Aye.
Garfield?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
And it's unanimous. Mark, a hot topic, Massachusetts Lottery Commission keynote monitor notification for Lipton Mart 606, 246 Stockton Road.
You said that, that's right.
Did I skip Lake Mansfield? I'm sorry. Chris, Lake Mansfield. I didn't mean to affront. Cause it was
Thanks.
not personal.
Thanks, Steve. Well, Lee and I, neither of us are there or feeling great, I guess. But Lee,
Yeah,
as your
I can
rep,
say my bit.
oh,
I can say
great.
my
Lee,
bit,
as
Chris,
your
if
rep
you want.
to the task force, wanted to provide an update. I'm happy to jump in.
Okay, sure. As the select board representative to the Lake Mansfield Improvement Task Force, I would like to update you all and announce that Lake Mansfield Improvements Project is currently out to bid, with bids due this Wednesday. The task force is hopeful that we'll receive some competitive bids and that construction can begin this fall. If all goes well, the project will be substantially complete by the end of May and reopen for the summer recreation season. Chris, take it from here, please.
Thank you, Lee. So really, this is a good time to update the board and folks who are listening that if we are able to receive some favorable bids and execute a construction contract, you will see some construction activity around Lake Mansfield. We didn't want anybody to be shocked or surprised that things are actually starting. I've been working on this project for well over a decade and the task force for almost 15 years. So we are now at the point where we believe we can implement the comprehensive improvement project You'll see the road around the lake will be closed between the parking lot and the beach when construction begins. There will also be periodic closures of the outlet area at the north end and closures of the parking lot area. So much of the pedestrian and vehicular access through that space will be impacted and not permitted so that we can get the project done. You'll also see a lot of tree removal near the parking lot. And just as a brief reminder, that is to expand the parking lot northwards to make it flatter and more handicapped accessible and to deal with the stormwater runoff. The work, as Lee said, should be done by the beginning of summer so that we can have a summer recreation season at the beach, around the lake and the parking lot and in the trails. And then we'll be able to come back in the fall of 2024 and do the final coat of paving and finish the tree planting and landscaping. When the project is completed, you'll recall that vehicles will no longer be permitted to use the roadway from the south end. In other words, from the boat launch to the beach. All passenger vehicles into the recreation area will be from the north end via Christian Hill Road in order to access the beach and parking lot and the trails. And then just as a reminder, the project includes several key aspects, all designed to protect the water quality of the lake in the long term and adapt to climate change and heavier storms and hotter summers, and also protect the habitat of the area, provide handicap accessibility throughout the area, and improve safety for everyone. So the parking lot at the beach, as I said, will be larger. There'll be rain gardens and other features to prevent stormwater contamination of the lake. A new larger culvert on the north end will be installed to prevent flooding of the road. And finally, the vehicle road, as I said, along the lake edge will be removed. It will be replaced with a shared use path for walkers and bicyclists, and emergency vehicles will be able to use that area, but there'll be bollards to prevent other vehicles from traveling that portion of the road. And the lake edge will be stabilized and provide stormwater filtration. The construction cost is just north of $2 million. We have approximately 1.7 million in grant funds from the state's Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program. So that's nearly 75% of the project. That's pretty incredible. The balance of the funds we hope can come from additional state grants, including stormwater, non-point source stormwater prevention grants, if we are successful. If not, we have the town funds in the capital budget, which was approved at last May's town meeting. We included funds in there in case we needed it. So we are fully permitted, we're fully funded. Hopefully we'll get some good bids and we'll start work this year. And you'll see a new and improved recreation area when we talk again at this time next year.
Thanks, Chris. Any questions?
I just got a couple questions, and very excited about this project. So, and it's great that it's on schedule for next year. Just remind me, boat launch side, say I'm coming to the park from that direction. Is there parking on that end, or is it expected everybody will drive over to the other side and there, you know, people from, say, the hill or that general neighborhood would just be biking in and stuff like that? Is there any, I guess, bottom line, any parking on the other side coming from the boat launch?
There are 5 or 6 spaces on the boat launch end at the south end.
Yeah.
Those will remain. I think there's 5 total, 4 plus 1 handicap space. Those will remain.
Yeah.
However, folks coming by car will not be able to go past that point. You can park there if there's space. Otherwise, you have to turn around.
So safe to say most people should expect to go to the other side, I guess. I just wanted to confirm that parking area didn't get any bigger, that's all.
Right. And the task force does want to host a community meeting. We're holding the October 3rd or 5th, just as another opportunity to have this kind of update for the public, for just to let people know what's going to be happening, when, and just to prevent any surprises, and go over the plans and ideas for people.
I'm not sure if it's that go there enough. I don't remember seeing, Chris, whether or not there's anything that says boat launch parking only, so that might be important if people are gonna. If people want to bring a boat and there's no parking for them, then they're not gonna be able to bring the boat. So maybe
Yeah,
we should
it's
have-
not restricted to boat launch parking. It's general parking for the area. For the
Well,
recreation.
I'm asking if we can do that, so people can indeed bring boats there and use them and launch them from that spot.
And it's kind of a long, sorry.
I'll check into that, Garfield. There are a few constraints, including the state funds that were used to construct that launch. So I'll have to make sure that it's okay to restrict parking in some way. But I'll check into that. It's not something the task force has ever considered, and I will say, because it's a multi-season, multi-user space, you know, in the wintertime, there's ice. The ice skaters park there, or people park there just to fish along the road edge. So a lot of different people use the space, but I'll look into that.
Verify.
Chris, is there parking allowed beyond the designated spots on that strip of Hollenbeck there? Are people allowed to do street parking there as well, if there's like overflow?
No, not currently.
Okay.
And there's no plan as part of this project to put on-street parking there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Keno.
Okay, so in your packet, we received a notification from the Massachusetts State Lottery Commission advising us that they are offering a Keno monitor to one of their existing Keno to-go agents, and that's Lipton Mart on Stockbridge Road. So I don't recall ever seeing these before. This was a new thing. I had to reach out to the Lottery Commission to get a little information. I spoke to Karen Harvey there. This is a required notification from the Mass Lottery Commission to cities and towns anytime they offer a Keno monitor to one of their existing Keno to-go locations. And if you don't know what that is, which I didn't, Keno to-go apparently is something that you can purchase at any lottery agent. Just like you would any other lottery ticket, you just have to check online or go home and check the results of that particular round. In this case, they're offering a monitor to Lipton Mart so that you could check your winning tickets right there and watch the results live. So that's the difference. We do have, I did get some more information from her. We currently have 11 Keno agents in town, and 3 of them have monitors. So we've never had any complaints before, so I don't see why we would in this one, but you do have the option to object and submit that in writing to the commission if you choose to.
I don't think we need to vote to approve this. We can, but I think what they're looking for is a negative.
Right.
If we had anything to say in the negative, which, I mean, it's not outside the building on a pole, it's inside, and nothing I'm gonna ever take advantage of, but it's everyone is different. So does anyone have any objections to this? You didn't get the feeling where you did endorse this, you know?
Yeah.
Lee, are you okay with this?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Thank you.
I'm okay.
We're going to table the vote to appoint a community preservation alternate, because I overstepped my bounds. The last one was a request from the town manager and myself, so that we can, on September 26th is the HWW rate case public hearing. And I thought it was important that we, and if everyone's okay with it, me as chair, present a statement from the select board with our views. Our views have been very clear and very cohesive during this whole thing. So I thought it was important that we make a statement at the public hearing, and not individually, but as a select board. So I just need permission, authorization for us to do that.
I would give authorization, but I'd love to see it before you send it out.
But we're gonna read it that night and we can email it to
Well,
you
I'd
before.
love to read it. I'd love to hear it before you read it.
Okay, I'll call you and read it to you.
You do
I
that.
can use it in practice.
Wise guy. But yeah, I know, I want to hear what you said
No,
before.
that's fine.
Definitely.
It's just, the problem is because we waited, now, and this was an afterthought, I'll take full responsibility. We don't have time for another meeting to present it and wordsmith it,
Yeah.
which is Ben's favorite thing to do at a public meeting.
That's a big All time
That's
of the day.
So do I have a motion to authorize the select board chair and town manager to draft a statement?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call vote, Ben?
Aye.
Garfield?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
And it's unanimous. Citizen speak time. Michelle, go ahead.
I know you voted for the Housatonic School project already. I just wanted to underscore something about the storage downstairs, down in the basement level. And I vaguely remember what that looked like. It's not that attractive, but in any event, my sister lives at Beach Tree Commons at Silver Street, and they offer similar storage at the lower level, and it's invaluable to her. It makes the difference of having to give things up versus having, and they're nice storage units down there. And she's on, she doesn't make a lot of money, and that sort of thing. And to pay for a storage unit would be, difficult for her. So I get what they were coming from with the storage there, and I think it's a great idea. Eric, I also liked your comment regarding, people who get tired of mowing a lawn all the time. They want to sell their house and live in an apartment. I can't think of anything cooler, having grown up in Housatonic, living in the Housatonic school someday. So that was a great comment. The reason I'm here tonight is about the last meeting I brought up a sidewalk at Division Street Bridge. Mark, you brought up that there's a state law that says it has to connect to sidewalks. And I had asked for a copy of that, and I can email you tomorrow to remind you. But I also wanted to point out tonight, I'm driving home from Lenox, I'm coming down through Stockbridge where the golf course is. There's a crosswalk there. It's a town crosswalk, it's a town road. There's no two sidewalks there. And I'm so glad you brought up Lake Mansfield, because I don't know if there's still a crosswalk there, but my daughter practically grew up there, and there was a crosswalk between the parking lot and the beach.
Yes, sir.
And there's no sidewalks there. Again, that bridge is very dangerous when you're walking and you're trying to cross back over to the sidewalk. So I want evidence that this is just really true, that is a state law. If not, I would like it seriously consider putting a crosswalk there on both ends of the bridge, because it's very dangerous. The traffic speed on Division Street far exceeds the limit. Commercial trucks, include local and out of town, are far exceeding the speed limit. And it's just a matter of time there's going to be an accident. As a matter of fact, I think the people who are renovating a house near the bridge, they have children. So more families are coming in on Division Street. You want people out there walking, cycling, running, and you have a dangerous situation at that bridge where you have to keep crossing over. So, Mark, I'll send you an email tomorrow to remind you to send me a copy of that law. But like I said, there are other areas that the crosswalks are not connecting to sidewalks. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
I did go by there a couple times, so I wasn't quite sure. That's what you wanted someone to look at, whether or not you can have a crosswalk there.
Yeah.
Remember you said you'd like at least one select person to go by there. I
Well,
went
the
there a
thing
couple
is,
of times.
get out of your car, go on the bridge, walk the sidewalk. So you're going towards Taft Farms, you're walking against the traffic, which is the rule. Barney always told us walk.
That's right, that was.
But you're coming back as you're going to my house, you get to the bridge, you have the light, you have cars come across the bridge, you gotta cross back over to the sidewalk. Go down the sidewalk, then cross back over again. if you're going towards North Plain Road. Yep, you do. I walk it almost
Yeah,
every day,
okay.
yeah.
Trying
So
Thank you.
we'll go on a field trip, right, Steve? You want
It
field
sounds like
trip?
fun. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah.
James, 84 North Plain Road.
Good evening. This is James Garzone, 84 North Plain Road. I'll just make a quick comment. I was glad to see some activity at 148 Maple Avenue. The only thing I wanted to ask, it was on Sunday at 11 in the morning, as I saw people on the roof making some alterations. I don't know if they're allowed to work on Sunday, but I was just wondering if that's allowed and, respectful to the neighbors. That's all. Thank you.
I'm getting a nod of the head that
As
they
far
are
as
allowed.
I know, that is allowed,
Okay.
between 8 and 8, so.
Yeah.
That's or not, noise by law.
Okay. Kathy and Kevin Regan.
Yes, hello. This is Kevin Regan, who's the tonic. I think the renovating the school using the old building and that is a great idea. However, I do have some concerns about the water. Since they'll be hooked up to Housatonic water supply, has the developer, the select board, the health department, or the filter company guaranteed that the filters they're planning to use will filter out HA5 carcinogens as certified by an independent lab? And if this cannot be guaranteed to be HAA5 free, will this affect the special permit that was just approved?
The developer is gone, so I can't answer that question. The special permit, he's aware of the problems with Housatonic water. So, but I can't answer that because he is gone.
But it has the select board or the health department, is that part of the either getting the CO or getting this project approved, the special permit? Is that been in consideration to have safe water for those new buildings?
That's why he's putting the filter on.
And has that filter been certified?
Again, he's not here, so I can't tell you that.
Okay,
I don't want to speak out of turn. I understand your concern, but I don't want to speak out of turn for him when I don't know the answer to that.
I know, but would the select board at least make sure that it is a certified system before they allow it to continue?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good night.
No, thank you. So I was a little remiss in the number of people who are here tonight, but I believe there was about 35 total between in-house and online at the height. Select board time. Ben.
I just want to promote the meeting on the 26th about Housatonic Waterworks with the DPU again. I'm glad that we're making a statement as a board. I plan to be there as a citizen as well.
Terrific. Perfect.
Nothing that's really pertinent other than the fact that, am I back on the planning board?
It is late.
3-hour meeting.
It is late.
Is it the planning board, am I?
Eric?
No offense, you guys, I love you.
Just excited with the work that was done today, the special
Hang on,
permit.
you stay dry.
That was
Go ahead.
one of my goals that, starting out and getting involved with the town, diving in was the reuse of the Housatonic school. So it's a big step that we moved one step forward. I know there's still a lot of distance to go, but it felt good today to get that special permit done. So thankful for that.
Lee?
No, thank you.
I have nothing. Eileen? You have your hand up and it's media time. You are unmuted, Eileen. I can see that.
Yeah. Sorry, right?
Football start at 7:15, Garfield.
There's a double game today.
Eileen, can you hear me?
I didn't call and say. There's 2 games tonight?
Yeah. It's usually open weekend, but they did it this time, the second week. One started at second.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if it.
They may have been.
Yeah.
I think we're done. I know Garfield's disappointed, but by unanimous consent, we are adjourned.
Yeah.